Welcome back to more talk about data. Today we're going to talk about what happens to our measures of center if we were to add or remove a data point. So what happens when the data changes? What happens when our set changes? How can adding or removing a data point affect the measures of center, the mean, median, mode? Does it make each center of measure increase, decrease, or does it not affect it at all and it stays the same? So let's take a look at this together. Anytime a data point is added or removed to a data set, it creates a new data set. The old one doesn't matter anymore. Other than do we increase, decrease, or stay the same? But the old one doesn't matter because you have new information that you're adding into it or taking out of it. That changes it, creates a new data set. So because of this, we need to recalculate the mean, the median, and the mode for the new data set. Today, we are taking it easy on you and providing you the former mean, median, and mode. So all you have to do is calculate the new one and then determine whether or not it increased, decreased, or stayed the same. That's not a hint here. It was just a way to show that. All right, so what we're doing here is we're adding a value of 21 to this data set. Now, what also is a little bit different is you are creating all three of these together. So what I recommend doing is to go ahead and put them in order from least to greatest. That will save you some time later on. It'll cut down on the kind of repetitious work that you might have to do. So rather than repeat stuff, what I would do is I would simply start out by ordering them from least to greatest. So I've got 16, two 19s here. My new value of 21, can't forget that over here. 22, 25, 26, and 27. So that's my new data set. Now to find the mean, remember we add everything up and then divide by how many there are. So go ahead, grab a calculator, especially as numbers are a little bit bigger. Let's make this a quick process and add these up and then figure out what you get. All right, when you add those up, remember you can always pause if I'm going a little bit too quick for you on this one, but rather than you listen to 30 seconds of silence while I wait for you to do a problem, you can always pause it and then pick it back up once you're good. But when you add them all up, you get 175. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of data. So it's 175 divided by 8. And that gives us an answer when you plug it into a calculator. Go ahead and do that. An answer of 21 and 875 thousandths. Now, if you know your decimals to fractions off the top of your head, that is 7/8 right there. So you could also represent it as a mixed number. But for our purposes, because it also makes it easier to compare to the former, we're going to leave it as a decimal. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this real quick. Did we increase, decrease, or stay the same? Well, this was 22. This is now 21 point whatever. It doesn't matter. That's 875 right there. But the fact that this is 22 and this is 21, it decreased. All right, let's go ahead and because we're going to start crossing stuff off for the median, let's take a look at the mode real quick. Do we have a number that occurs most often? Well, our former one was 19. Has that changed? It has not. So our new mode is still 19 and it stayed the same. You could also say no change. Any way to represent, it stays the same. All right, our former median was 22. Let's go ahead and let's see if that's still the case. So remember, median, you go from the lowest and the highest and keep working your way in. I'm now seeing a situation where I've got these two values in the middle. So remember to figure out the new median. You do 21 plus 22. Add them together. You should be able to do that real quick without a calculator. You get 43. And then remember, we divide by how many numbers there are. So there are 2 here, and it's 43 divided by 2. Calculate that real quick. And you get 21.5. Now, without running this, hopefully you recognize the fact that because it was between these two, it decreased. It went down because this was our old median, and then it went down. So hopefully you recognize that, but also take a look here. Okay, 22 down to 21 something, so that, of course, decreased. All right. Well, that's what happens when we add a value, and let's take a look at a situation where we are getting rid of a value. So what we're doing is we are removing the value 2 from the data set. So when I write out my new data set, I'm simply going to be doing that right there. Okay, but notice not in order, so I'm just going to rearrange them in order. 4, 4, 4. I have 2 5s, 6, 7. All right. So let's find the mean first, then we'll take a look at the mode, see if that changed, and then we will calculate the median. All right. For this, to figure out the mean, you're going to take all those values and you're going to add them together. Go ahead and do that now, and then check in with me. Okay, 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, plus 5 plus 5. Had a little glitch there. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, plus 5 plus 5, so that's 10. So 12 plus 10 gives us 22. Add another 6 to that, and you're going to get 28. Add 7 to that, you get 35. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data. So it's going to be 35 divided by 7. We should remember this from our education career so far, not even need to grab a calculator for that. 37 divided by 5 gives us an answer of 5. So our new mean is 5. And let's take a look. Do we increase, decrease, or stay the same? Well, we went from 4 something up to 5, so we increased. Okay, so that's something that can happen there. We took off the smallest value. It caused our mean to increase. All right, the next one, we said our mode was 4. Well, let's take a look. I've got 3 4s, 2 5s, and 1 of each. So mode, to me, most occurring is still 4. Stayed the same. And let's take a look at the median. So again, we're going to bottom to top it. Our former median was 4.5. So what we're going to take a look at is, does this stay the same? Does this increase, or does that decrease? Lowest, highest, lowest, highest, lowest, highest. And what we are left with right in the middle is 5. So just like the mean in this situation, we went from 4 something to 5. This increased. So one thing I want to point out to you is when you had the former median, it was between these two numbers. Obviously, those are not in order from greatest to least, so just kind of rearrange that. But it was between these two. And then removing a value, put it solely on the 5. Up here, if we did not have this 21, okay, and we kind of got rid of that. Take a look, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You have the 22, but adding that value pushed the median over. So just kind of start paying attention to that. Think about some of the patterns that you're noticing in adding or removing these values and what it ends up doing to these. So like in this one, when we added in a value, well, the value was something smaller than our average, our mean, so it made our mean decrease. For this one, we took away a value that was smaller than our mean, smaller than the average. It caused that to increase. So just start thinking about those things, see once what patterns you recognize. We'll take a look and see once if this holds up over some other practice, if that will always be the case, what we see happening. But we'll take a look together. All right, last problem of today, and then we will do some practice on this stuff together, make sure we understand it. Mr. T measured the heights of his students in inches. 55, 56, 58, 58, 60, 62, 63, 61, 57. And he just had a new student join his class who was 55 inches tall. So, based on this information here, the average height in his class was 58.8 repeating inches. The middle height in his class was 58 inches. So if he were to line his students up in order from least to greatest, the person who's in the very middle would be 58 inches tall. In our former mode, most students in the class, let me rephrase, the most common height in his class is 58. Not most students are 58. The most common height in the class is 58 inches. All right, let's go ahead and let's insert in this 55 inches. So, 55 and the new 55. Okay, then I've got 56 inches. Can't forget about at the end here, 57. 58. 58. 60. 61. 62. And 63. If you're curious how tall this is in terms of like feet and inches, that right there is 5 foot. So anything above 60 inches, that's 5 feet and some inches. So like 5 feet, 2 inches, 5 feet, 3 inches, 5'1". And anything below, you're just taking away inches from there. So like 58 would be 4'10". 57 is 4'9", and 4'8", 4'7". All right. That's just a little bit of that because there are 12 inches in a foot. So divide by 12. That's what you get. All right. Let's go ahead and let's find the new mean. For the sake of space, I'm going to put it over here. I strongly recommend a calculator for this one. Those are some bigger numbers that'll make life quicker and easier. The big thing that we want to focus on is making sure we add them all up correctly and then divide correctly. So go ahead and use a calculator. Phil will help you out with that. When you add them all up, you get 585. What you're then going to do is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Divide by 10. This one you can do without the calculator. Anytime we divide by 10, we simply slide the decimal one place to the left. So our new mean, our new average height is 58.5 inches tall. Both of these are 58s, but take a look at the decimal. We went from a decimal in the 10th place of an 8 to a 5, so that is a decrease. Which also makes sense because the new student who came in was on the shorter end of everything, so that caused that to decrease. Okay, let's take a look at the mode. Our former mode was 58, so 58 happened twice. And all we did was add in another value. So let's take a look at the other value, 55. Well, that also caused it to be the same. Let me rephrase. That also caused it to be occurring twice. So we end up with having both 55 and 58 as our modes. Now, mode's a little bit different in terms of increase, decrease, or stay the same because you're simply seeing which one occurs the most. But if you want to put one of those things on it, technically speaking, it decreased because you introduced a mode that has a smaller value than the original 58. Even though 58 is still there, we now have an additional value of 55 that's in there. So technically speaking, it causes it to decrease. But mode's really one of those things we kind of think of it outside of the rest of them in terms of increasing, decreasing, or staying the same. All right. Let's take a look at the median. So remember, we're finding that middle number. So we're simply finding what's in the middle of all of our data. So starting lowest, highest, lowest, highest, lowest, highest, lowest, highest. And if you take a look, we have two numbers that are in the middle there. But they're the exact same number, which means we do not have to do that math, because if you do that math, you're going to add them together, divide by 2, and you're going to be right back to where you started at 58. So this is one of those situations where when we add in a value, it does not impact the median. So that number stays the same. Now, it's not always going to happen, but it's just kind of one of those things that we had two people that were 58 inches tall, and they still ended up being right in the middle of all of that data. So, what did we learn today? If you were to add in a value or take out a value, it is going to, according to where that value fits into your data set, either increase or decrease, or potentially have it stay the same for your mean, median, and mode. What you're going to be doing and what the expectation is going to be, you're not always going to be given the original mean, the original median, and mode. So you need to make sure that you are taking your time and knowing that you need to solve for these first. Then you need to do whatever it's telling you, like a new student comes in, and then do that again to figure out whether or not they increase, decrease, or stay the same. So there are very real-world applications in this because information is changing all the time, and people who analyze data are constantly running these things with new information that they have available. They're not doing it by hand like you guys are, but they're using technology to assist them in that. But just understand, this is a very real-world thing that happens every day because new information becomes available to people who analyze it every day. All right, we are going to practice this stuff tomorrow. Make sure that you come ready to go. Bring any questions that you have. I'll see you then.